audio also for that recording. All right, so our steps for how to register to vote will start with deciding where you want to register, and then registering with your proof of residence, and then you'll want to get a voter ID. Those are three really essential basic things that you'll need to make sure that you're registered, and this will get you everything that you need to make sure you can get to the polls in November. And who is eligible to vote? We have 43,000 students at UW-Madison, and about 37,000 of them are eligible to vote. And we have quite a lot of out-of-state students on our campus as well. And so these different groups of people will have different barriers in front of them to make sure that they're registered. And we're going to educate you a little bit about that today. We can go to the next slide, Angela.
Sorry, one sec. Okay.
Yep, and at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we have a 53% voter turnout on campus, which means we have a lot of work to do in terms of turning out other students. So in terms of events like this and also reaching out to your friends, we want to make sure that we're all playing a role in educating one another about voting. And voter registration is something that is relatively easy when you're given all of the resources. So feel free to take the information you learned today, which we will post on our website, and share it with your friends as well so that they can get registered. All right, so the requirements. The requirements to register to vote are that you are going to be 18 years old on election day. And if you're a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, you probably do meet that requirement. You have to be a US citizen, you have to be not on probation or parole, and then you have to live in your current residence for 28 days preceding the election, which means that even if the address on your Wisconsin ID, for example, doesn't match where you're living currently, you just have to have lived in your apartment building or in your dorm for 28 days before the election. And when you're choosing an address, students can choose one location as a voting address. So if you're like me and you're from Milwaukee, you want to make sure that you're registered currently at your address in Madison if you're planning at voting in a Madison voting ward. And so you'll choose your one location as your voting address, and that can be your campus area address or your home address in Wisconsin or another state. And if you're voting in another state, then you'll likely get an absentee ballot and get that sent here so that you can vote in your local election. And when you're registering in a state other than Wisconsin, you can utilize resources like campusvoteproject.org to register, or you can go to rockthevote.org/online.
Okay, and then pathways to registration. So if you want to register to vote in Wisconsin, so say you need to change your address because you moved to campus from your home, or you are out of state and you just moved to Wisconsin, there are 3 pathways to registration. So you can either register online at myvote.wi.gov. You can fill out a paper form and mail it to the clerk's office or email it to the clerk's office, or you can do an electronic registration form. It's a little bit different path you want to take considering what circumstances you individually have. So online registration is the easiest way to get registered. However, you can only do online registration at myvote.wi.gov if you have a Wisconsin driver's license or ID and you're registering at the address that's on record at the DMV. So most likely that's the address that's on your driver's license or your ID. And then you can only register, you can, backwards. 1 second, let me go back. All right, sorry about that. So, and you can only register at a Madison address, at a Wisconsin address at myvote.wi.gov. But it's a great resource if you are already registered and you want to see a sample ballot, find out where your polling place is, or request an absentee ballot. You can do that at MyVote, but you can only register there if you're registering with the Wisconsin driver's license at that address. So the second way to register is by doing a paper form. So this would be someone who doesn't want to change their address at the DMV. So say you got your driver's license and your driver's license address is your home address, and now you're living on campus and you want to vote on campus. This is a way you could get registered. Or if you don't have a Wisconsin driver's license, so if you're an out-of-state student, you can use this paper form registration. you can go onto the clerk's office website and they have forms that you can print out to fill out or electronic PDFs you can fill out. And then,
so if you,
yeah, sorry, I see there's people in the waiting room. 1 second. Sorry, not the most Zoom savvy person. Do you guys know how I would admit someone from the waiting room while I'm sharing my screen?
I think you'll have to stop sharing to let people in.
Stop sharing. All right, pause 1 second. All right, cool. Everyone's in. Welcome, new people. We're going through voter registration. So we'll keep going through the presentation, and then if you have questions afterwards, we will stick around to answer questions as well. All right. And then Katie, do you want to continue with electronic registration?
muted, I'm sorry. So the other option for voter registration is electronic registration, and we included this link that you can fill out your registration information there. And then, so once you do that, you want to check up in on myvote.wi.gov just to make sure that they received your change of address or registration if you're doing it through there, because they're sending it in for you. And then, so the other thing that you're going to need is a proof of residence. And this is a government document that has your name and address. And a really easy way, if you're a UW student, is a UW webpage that shows your name and address, because that is considered a government document. Otherwise, you can use things like a bill or even your lease. I know that you can use, so you have options, but a UW webpage is definitely the easiest and convenient option. And then, so for your proof of residence, you can print it out or email it. So if you want to email it, you're going to take a screenshot. And then if you're in Madison, you email it to this email address that we included. And that's definitely the easier way, because then you don't have to pay for postage or find a place to mail it. And then if you're outside the city of Madison, you should print and then print the proof of residence with your form and then mail it in. And then if you don't have a proof of residence, write send letter on the form. And so for voting, you're going to need a voter ID. So there are acceptable and non-acceptable forms of voter ID, and the two that are the most important to know that you can't use are an out-of-state driver's license or your WIS card. So if you do need a voting ID and you don't have something like a Wisconsin ID or a passport, you can go to the WIS card office in Union South and get a voter identification for free. So that's really a really good option as well. And then, so deadlines for voter registration, you have to register by 5 p.m. 20 days before an election, or at an early voting location, or at your polling place on election day. So you definitely have options, but if you're wanting to vote absentee, you're going to want to do it sooner than later. And then we wanted to stop here and take some time for anyone that has questions. So if you want to